Hi everyone, I'm Tina Van Leuven, your practical joy alchemist and your host for the Joy Evolution Summit, where we have the pleasure of spending time with the most delightful joy beacons from around the world. Today, I am very excited to be spending sacred time with Julie Boyer, who is going to be sharing her journey to joy with us and a whole lot more. Julie is a career coach who helps women who are stuck in the wrong job create soul-fulfilling careers so they can be deeply fulfilled by doing what comes naturally to them. A seasoned career coach and author of the book, Just Give Me Meaningful Work, Julie believes work can be more than just a paycheck. It can lift us to new heights of happiness. She runs a one-on-one coaching program called Jumpstart to Loving Your Job Again, which helps clients to set down old patterns that have kept them stuck and exhausted for years and launch into creating a career that they truly love. So welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Great to be here with you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the joy of soul-fulfilling work and how that has all come into being. So to get us started, I'd love for you to share with us a bit about what has your journey to joy been like? The conversations that we've been having have been really about, sharing that journey of going from knowing about joy to really embodying it and living from that place and the
Yeah.
highs and lows accompanied on that journey.
Yes. So I have a sort of storyline around joy, a thread that goes through my life about from my 20s up until now. And it's all about experiencing joy and then experiencing the vulnerability of it. And then, when it doesn't go so well, when it's not received, right? And the vulnerability and the hurt that can happen around that. So when I was in my 20s and I was in college, I had panic attacks. And it was like all of this emotion that I had stuffed down was sort of bubbling to the surface. And it was a very transformative experience, but it was really hard. It was difficult. And I was in a dual degree program. So around that time, I was moving into the art school portion of my degree. And everything opened up for me. It was like I started feeling my emotions and things started to flow. And I connected with the creative process in this way that just fed me. It sort of blew me open. And I experienced such joy through art making. It was truly wonderful. And it was so healing because that was such a difficult time in my life. So joy was like this beacon for me. It was like I knew that I had my joy, and if I followed that, that would take me to good places. I could count on that. So that's how I made art for the next couple of years. And when I graduated, we had a review board. So we didn't get grades or anything. We had one review board where we presented our work from the semester or the year, and we would be evaluated and critiqued. So at that time, I was doing performance work. It was interactive. It was very in the moment. I made these kind of what I felt were very joyful, celebratory, garish, outrageous kind of costume items that I would put on and take off. I would be on roller skates. And so for the review board, I decided not to do a performance because that didn't feel right for me. So I took all of the things that I had made, I put them in the performance room with spotlights because I really felt that the joy of the things that I had made carried an energy. And instead, what I chose to do is I made an apple pie from scratch. I was really good at making apple pies. Another thing that has always brought me joy is this apple pie. And so I made this apple pie and I brought it in, and I had a picnic table, gingham, tablecloth that I brought in. So I kind of set up an environment, and I was very present and in the moment. And for me, bringing this apple pie was like sharing my joy. And there was a performative aspect to it in that I was really calling everybody to be in the moment and receive that and enjoy pie together. And this is not, in terms of performance art, this isn't like way out there. It may seem like it doesn't make sense to some of our listeners, but what happened was it wasn't received well. And from my perception, I don't know what was really going on in everybody's minds because I'm not them. But from my perception, it was like they couldn't receive it. And what the response that I got was, "Why are you giving us apple pie? Are you buttering us up?"
Oh.
They felt like they couldn't place what I was doing in the framework that they had, that they were coming to critique with.
Mm.
And what you really had to do to receive the pie is be in an experience. And that intellectual process of critique is often different. It's not like it can't exist simultaneously, but you can't experience joy. You can't know joy intellectually.
Mm.
You can't sort of logic your way to it and sort of grapple with it that way. You've got to just experience it, and it's vulnerable, and it's connective, and there's no, we're not in control. So to me, this was like the beauty of the experience was being this vulnerable. And I really think that moment was meant to happen for me. I was meant to be hurt in terms of that, because what happened was things like that happened. It was like a pattern. They would happen at different points in my life where I would share joy and it wouldn't be received. And then I would feel totally alone and run a story that I don't belong, right? Or there's something wrong with me. And I think that was meant to happen because, the lesson for me has been to for it to be enough to connect to my own joy, for me to know that that's real, that joy is an ephemeral experience. It comes and goes. It's not something I can prove to somebody. I can be in my joy. I can offer it. I can create from it. But beyond that, I don't have control, and it's not, my value is something that I experience myself. Am I making sense so far? Yeah. So, so I think that like joy is a huge part of how I approach things, and it's part of what lifts me out of separation when I get caught in that sort of dull place, and it's part of what connects me to something bigger, to the divine, and it's a journey, trusting it and following it.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Julie. And, it just sparks something in me as you're sharing the story, is realizing that, wow, you saying that it brought you great joy. You love making apple pie. So having that experience of sharing what you love, we say,
Right.
joy is love in action. And how would you say that event may have been a preview to life's coming attractions, if you like, with this other amazing project that you brought into the world, which feels
Oh, yeah.
very
Yeah.
linked to that.
Right. So how does it link to the career stuff? So I'm going to have to fast forward, like jump over a decade or two. Oh, Zoe wants to pipe in. She's like, I'm joyful too.
Yeah.
Yes, you are joyful. So fast forward to another difficult point in my life where I was trying to figure out how to make a living, basically as an artist, and also figuring out where do I belong professionally. It can be tricky when you're an artist. And, a lot of people that I knew, like one way of doing that is to have a job that pays the bills and to do your art on the side, and to have this very clean way of separating out those activities. But that never worked for me. I just always knew that I needed things to be like whole and aligned, because I wanted to throw myself into sort of one thing. And so I, really struggled to find my way for a while, and, to the point where I was so stressed out that I had like physical ailments and things like that. And then I picked up a book on leadership coaching, and that sparked like a real feeling of recognition. And that opened up like a lot of feelings, a lot of emotion, a lot of knowing, a lot of intuition. I just felt like this was my path. And there was joy in there, right? So, and there's joy for me in imagining what's possible. So following that was a really important piece of me finding my place, eventually landing myself in a coaching program where I thought, okay, this is it. I'm here.
Yeah.
I found it. This is my thing. But it's really important. So like the way that I approach career coaching is, it really is about using your joy, that place inside you, to inform decision making. because so often when money is involved, or when, there are survival needs around work. And so we can lean on the parts of us that want to sort of put it together logically, and they play it safe, right? Or these parts of us that say like, well, what can I get? What's the job that I can get? Or what, where would my skills line up? Which are smaller ways of thinking, actually, than starting from a place of joy. So I encourage my clients to really get to that vulnerable place, to move beyond scanning the world for what I can get, what my small brain thinks is possible, and sinking down into, what do you really want? Like, if you're really being honest with yourself, like your most vulnerable self, what do you long for? And I find that question of longing takes you into a totally different place, So it's like longing takes us into the essence of what we want, not just the circumstantial outcome, and there's a lot of resonance in that.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure, many in our audience can relate to having made decisions on their path that may have been more driven by what the mind thought was possible, or what society deemed was, proper. That's another thing that plays out. Yeah. So speaking of, what zaps your joy.
What zaps my joy? So I would say what zaps my joy a lot of times is what I call my striver. So in the coaching framework that I use, it's like we have these different terms that we assign to different parts of us. And the striver is the part of us that is trying to prove something, that really doesn't believe, that we are enough, or that we're lovable, or that we're okay, or whatever it is. And so if that part of us truly doesn't believe that, then it's scrambling to prove something. It's scrambling to get something done. There's a sense of urgency, like, if I don't do this, or it's like a feeling of a carrot that's just around the corner, but it always moves, right? You're never quite there. And I can slip into striver mode. I mean, it's such a human thing to do. And that can feel exciting. Like, I'm going to build this business. I'm going to make it, I can come up with these striver-based dreams, but they're not joyful for me. Actually, in the end, they suck the life out of me.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning, but I've learned a lot about how to set that down, so that it takes so much trust to work from an expansive place. It really, I mean, I know I don't have to tell you, I'm just sort of expressing.
I love how you're sharing it. Like, I call them the inner shitty committee. So I'm like, yeah, I like that the striver is on board. Yes.
Oh, yes. Inner shitty committee. I love it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's such an important point that you bring up, because I think in society, we've been conditioned to function from the do mode. So you constantly feel like you're gonna get your rewards as soon as. So you constantly feel like you have to strive in order to get to that place of joy, to get to that place of fulfillment, whatever it is. Yeah.
And it's a trick.
Yes.
Oh, that is such a trick. Oh, that doesn't happen that way.
What?
Isn't it ironic? It's so flipped.
Yeah.
Like, we connect our joy, and then all of a sudden it's like we have so much power. Like, there's life. We're connected to our spirit and the part of us that's really strong and bright.
Yeah. So that's your joy. So what really sparks your joy?
So there are a few things that I can really count on that will consistently, I know that I will pop into joy if I do them, activities, right? So one is specifically creating visual stuff. And I love using words too. So anytime I love to make creative marketing materials, infographics, or trying to express something in a new way for people. And I'm kind of grokking it on my own as well. But expressing that in visual terms, it brings me so much joy. I have to actually wait a little while after I make something, because I know that when I show somebody this thing that I've made, they're not going to feel the same joy that I'm feeling, because I'm feeling it because I made it. It's my whole inner world that is bringing this joy. So sometimes I'll save it for myself and then wait a week or two and then share it when I'm sort of like, what do you think about this? It's I find that making stuff just pops me into that place, and where I feel a lot of pleasure and often bliss. I love creating. And then another place that I go to is learning. So I can experience joy. I can be sort of screwing something up, but if I'm learning, not from the sense of like trying to be better or get somewhere, but it's just like the discovery. I just absolutely love the adventure of discovery. And so when I'm learning something totally new, like, this coaching framework I've been in for the last 3 years, oh my gosh, for the next 10 years, I could be learning more and more just through this one framework alone. And it really fills me up it's like I can feel it right now in my belly as I talk about it. It's there's many levels of joy and satisfaction that come from learning from me.
Beautiful. Yeah. So in looking back at your life, maybe looking at like, was there a particularly challenging time in your life where you wish that you could have had access to more joy or experienced more joy?
Oh, many times. And I think because, all the times that I felt really lost, especially around career. I mean, I really I never dreamed of being a career coach when I was little. That was not something. I mean, if you told my 20-year-old self that I'm a career coach, she would be like, what happened to you? Like, it just wouldn't make sense. But I really have had this story of struggle around career and, for a long time, just trying to figure out what's my place? Where do I belong? And I did give myself moments of joy. I did give myself those experiences by making art along the way. But I think I wish if I were to go back and sort of, as my adult, stand with my younger self, I think I would be telling her, your joy matters. It already matters. This experience, it matters. Whether or not anybody else can see it or experience it with you or receive it. And by the way, that's not to say that never happens for me. It totally does, of course. But yeah, I think that's the message I would give my younger self.
It's so beautiful. So I think it's so interesting when seeing, the experiences that you've had where you wish that you'd experienced more joy, how that has shaped what you're doing now. And so helping others on their journey to finding that soul fulfilling work, and
Yes.
not having to go through the struggles and the challenges and stuff that you had to go through, or if they do, that you help them to navigate that with so much more ease and joy, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's how I feel about my clients. Like, your joy matters. It's like we only have this. I mean, maybe we have many lifetimes, right? So I believe that we do have many lifetimes, but this lifetime, we only have so much time. And it's like we don't want to spend all of our time in the struggle part where we're sort of struggling to prove something. Like, we want to get to the part that's really fun, where we really get to like experience what our soul wants us to experience and really like feel that and receive it.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about that, this journey of that for others to discover the joy of soul fulfilling work. What does it take?
What does it take to find soul fulfilling work? It's going to really surprise you. To follow your joy. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that is it is a good way of summarizing it.
But why I'm asking, why I'm laughing is because one of the things here is that realizing that joy, as you've already shared, it's such a personal experience, right?
Yeah.
So what is joyful for one may not be joyful for someone else at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Like, if you put data in front of me, I'm like, like, oh my God. But there are people who are utterly passionate about data who come alive, right? Like, I was just watching how Bill Gates processes things in the new show on Bill Gates. And, that's such a good example of it's true, we have our own individual relationship to the world, and
Mm.
our individual, like we all become joyful through different means. And
Mm.
yeah, so it's very helpful to take care of that and to follow it. And I will say there's like a big asterisk here, or a really big footnote, which is the piece about what gets in the way of our joy. And that really is the pattern. So the striver that I spoke of, it's or the inner shitty committee that you talk about, it's the stuff that gets in the way. Is like we have to take responsibility for that, like own it somehow, and
Mm.
work with it, and really, allow that to be part of our work to creating joy and to allowing ourselves to move forward in that direction. Because if we're not bad for having that part of ourselves, but we've got to learn to work with it and heal
Mm.
it and set it down so that, we can go through life. We can make career choices from a more adult place. Because, most of us want, like everybody who I talk to, they want to make a difference. There's a lot of heart that they want to put into their work. They want that
Mm.
sense of deep satisfaction, which is very heart-based. I don't talk to anybody who's like, just give me a job. I just want to show up and, like,
Mm.
we long for that. And also we long to be fully expressed and for our gifts to be used and seen in the world. And if we don't follow that, in my opinion, that nags us. That
Mm.
becomes something that's unfinished business that kind of follows us around. So it's a good idea to sort of look at the whole picture and really listen to the bigger part of you, and the part that can really be honest about what you want long term for your future, and let yourself build that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. 'Cause I think what you're sharing there, realizing that those parts about integrating them or, really working with them, that striver surely also is part that knows that more is possible and available for you. So when you align with that and allow
Yes,
that, yeah.
that's such a good point, because it comes from this like teenage part of us, which does feel like, the world is nothing is impossible,
Mm.
right? So that's so true. There is an aspect of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So who else is on the team that you tend to address when you're working with people to find their
Well, there's my child too. So like, and actually there's a really strong relationship between how I experience joy and my child. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar for other people as well, because our child is the one who feels
Mm.
in awe of the world, who can like receive for no reason, who can, just be in wonder, that state of wonder,
Mm.
and play. And there's so much joy that comes from our child, like the healthy aspect of our child, when our child is nice and happy and not,
Yeah.
you know, not throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can happen too.
But that's so interesting, isn't it? Because again, there in society, I think it's interesting to watch how the different kind of schools have been popping up over the years. Different education systems allowing children to really be in their creative expression and letting the rational stuff come in later. Because how often is it that you see little kids? I don't know what the age is in the US these days, but when they start going to preschool, it's younger and younger. And it's like kids are not given space to play. And when that gets squashed, how do you stay connected with that playful energy,
Right,
and the sense of
right.
wonder?
I know, and kids have this natural instinct around it, and this whole intelligence around play and discovery, and and they're also very spiritually connected, right? Kids can have really strong intuition.
Mm.
Um, we can learn a lot from them. I do. I think it's great that we're changing our ways a little bit to protect that, and I think we can also learn from it.
Mm. So we've got the seeker, we've got the child. Who else is on board for
Oh,
people
gee.
to connect with?
Yeah. So, well, there's my young adult, which is kind of like the 20-year-old that I talked about, right? So that would be the part that is, wondering if she's enough as a human being. And I think that's where I was with my career struggle, is that in that part of me. And then again, it's like, I would think the light side of the young adult is that, it's like the whole world is ahead of us when we're in our young adulthood, that, there is so much to learn. There is so much opportunity. Talk about like discovery. If discovery brings me joy, like the rest of life is one long discovery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you find when you're talking about how it's vulnerable to be with your joy? I mean, you share that experience of wow, you put so much love and passion into that apple pie. You put so much love and passion into what you're creating and sharing. I think especially when you're really expressing your soul, what matters to your soul, and you shared it with others. It's like if
Yeah.
somebody criticizes that or doesn't receive it, it feels like you're being, hit at your core.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, how do you be with that vulnerability and how do you support others with that? Do you have maybe some um, tips or some
Mhm.
practices that you use that our audience may be able to experience for themselves? So I think this is a
Yeah.
really important key.
Yes. Okay. Well, so first I'll share an insight with you, which is that experience that I had with the people on my review board. They were just being who they were and were coming from wherever they were coming from. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But the reason why it hurt me so much is because I had those parts of me.
Mm.
So I had managed to open up these windows of joy for myself, but I still had my own inner review board sort
Mm.
of critiquing and being like, this doesn't matter. Show me the money. What are you going to do with your life? Your joy doesn't matter. So I would say that, and this is a little like, I know this is kind of like going deep for a for an interview, but you
Oh,
have a
not
very
going
enlightened
there. Come
audience.
on.
So
Where all everybody drawn to being here in Joy Evolution will be saying yes, yes,
okay,
yes.
good. Yeah, so I would look at where that is in you, because really the place, like the root of empowerment, like real interchange and filling up with love and healing and all that stuff, is to see where those voices are happening inside you and do something about them. you
Mm.
know if it's coming from a really nasty place, we all have this negative ego voice inside us that is really not a voice that we should be turning to ever. um, and that's the one who thinks that you're not enough and tells you,
Mm.
your joy doesn't matter and all kinds of stuff. We need to draw a boundary, certainly, with that, but we have to see it to draw a boundary, right? So we have to own that I do have a place inside me that is saying stuff like that, and it's having an impact on me. It's making
Yeah.
me feel more vulnerable than I need to be, or it's making me feel too scared to share my joy or follow it. And I find that when we can actually get it kind of outside of us and see it, like even just to write down, list all, what your naysayers are saying, just write everything that comes up in your mind. If it's coming up in your mind, it's in your mind. So write it down
Mm.
so that you can look at it and be separate from it and own it and be like, okay, wow, that's coming from me. And then there's a whole process of reckoning with that, because there's you know, when we see that, we have access to the impact of it as well.
Mm.
That doesn't feel too good. That's really, those voices have been holding me back. They've really been preventing me from the things that I keep telling people that I want.
Mm.
And so to work with those voices and to own that process and to feel all the feelings associated with it, I find that you come out of that into a place where you've got more focus and your motivations change, really.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that's part of, people talk, different ways of talking about things. I think it's so fun to hear the different perspectives because we will all have had experiences, I'm sure, where you may have been thinking that it's outside yourself and then, whoa, suddenly you realize, oh my gosh, I remember 9/11 happening and I used to work for United Airlines. So this was really close to home. And, feeling this absolute rage coming up for the terrorists. And I was in the middle of healing science program at the time and coming towards the end. And it's like making peace with the inner terrorist in myself. It was really confronting, but so
Yeah.
liberating. And it's like, wow. And until we make peace with those parts, like you say, then you keep on creating situations outside to give you opportunity to recognize that it's coming from within. So it's almost like bringing the peace committee together, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's so well said. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, oh, wow, beautiful, huh? So
Yeah.
recognizing that that's inside. So then, tell us a little bit about, you've got a beautiful gift for our audience here, the free guidebook to finding soul fulfilling work. So just
Yeah.
meaningful work.
Yeah, so it's a book that I wrote, and you can buy it on Amazon if you want for 16.99 or something like that, or you can download it for free, the PDF version, that is.
Mhm.
If you want the paper copy, that's on Amazon. But this is a guidebook to change. So it'll run readers through a process of looking at those voices, the negative ego or saboteur voices that we've been talking about, so that you can set them aside, and then getting a little more vulnerable and real about what you actually want, and spending time there until you see that what you want is actually possible,
Mm.
and getting in touch with your purpose, which is the thing that's going to give you the confidence to move forward, and your magic, so that you're really owning your value as you go and do this, and setting a commitment, so that once you set this commitment, every experience that comes your way is a learning opportunity that will help move you even closer to what you want. So
Mm.
there's a whole system in there, and I use it with my coaching clients. So it's tried and true.
Yeah, beautiful. So we will share the link below the replay on our website, and I invite our audience to just feel, some any of the things that Julie shared here today that may be really resonating with you, or sparked something in you, or maybe you think, "Oh, let me just have a look at some of these committee members that I may not have been aware of," and do some journaling. Download the guidebook and take that into your everyday life. So one of the things that we've created is the private Facebook group where we're hosting the Practical Joy Experiment, realizing that there's so much amazing, delicious inspiration shared in all these conversations. But unless you do something with that inspiration, then it's just floating up here and it doesn't land. So we want people to have the experience of applying some of these joy sparkers to actually live this in their life, to embody joy, realizing that, wow, when you implement this, you start creating changes in your life. And how empowering is that? So, let us know in our group, and what resonated most with you, or any questions you have, or any ahas. We'd love to hear that. And so, Julie, we're at the end of our time here, just about. I know we have so much more we could talk about. Not to mention all these other members on the committee. It's so
Right.
fun. I like to say, some they need to get it's so fun because tying this into the self-fulfilling work, if you work with people finding their careers and things that are really lining them up, and when you go into a negotiation for a job or a contract somewhere, you go through what are the terms and conditions, right? So having that conversation with those inner members, and you know what, it's time for contract negotiation here, time for an upgrade,
Yes.
new job
Yes.
description.
Exactly. And making sure all the parts are aligned,
Yeah,
coming to that agreement. Oh my gosh.
so awesome.
Yeah.
So any parting words for our audience?
Oh, yeah, I would just, if I could leave everybody with one thing, it's just your joy matters, and listen to your longing. Whatever it is that you long for, it could be just an experience that you want to have in life. Definitely, definitely listen to that and follow it. It's really
Mm.
important.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Julie, so much for sharing your joy and your light and your brilliance with us here today. And until we meet again, many joyful blessings. And for everyone, go forth and let joy be your guide to a life that is worth waking up for every day.
Thank you, Tina. This has been wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jill. I'm so glad you said yes to being here. Yeah.